Hi, my name is James Shepard. I'd like to welcome you to the Self Storage Insight podcast. I'm actually the founder of CC Storage. Ben Shirey, who was running the business for me for a long time, did this podcast, and I'm sure we'll have him back on here again. But I'm going to do a few episodes here, and I'm really enjoying it. Looking forward to sharing this with you today. We do a great episode with Brandon Michael. He's got 6 self-storage facilities, and he just gives us some practical tips on financing self-storage units, running them, just a bunch of different things we talked about, and it was a fantastic one. Don't forget that this episode and the podcast itself is sponsored by CC Storage. You can head over to ccstorage.com to check it out. Fantastic self-storage management solution. So if you're using other competitors, we'd encourage you to come check it out and learn how we can reduce the cost of both software and payment processing while increasing efficiency and automation. With that being said, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey everybody, James Shepard here. Thank you for joining us for the Self Storage Insight podcast. Today I've got Brandon Michael with me. How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing great, James. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And so for those of you that are listening in, Brandon is literally standing right outside of a self-storage unit at one of his properties. So yeah, good stuff. So you might hear even a little bit of wind here and there. That's just Brandon being outside doing his thing. So Brandon is the managing partner at Greater Good Investments. So Brandon, give my audience a little bit of your story. Like, how did you end up getting into the self-storage industry, and how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, James. Yeah, great question. I think everybody should understand, it starts from going 0 to 1. You read all this stuff, you can educate yourself. And so the first opportunity that I was able to buy storage was 20 years after I had learned about it. And I was in real estate investing. I had owned businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur, much like you. Yep. And so I wanted to start something in the self-storage industry and go ahead and get one, or acquire one, I should say. And took time to understand how the business works and really just walk through the whole process of like, hey, listen, this is a business. It's not just you're buying a piece of land or you have a commercial tenant. You're having to do all this fun stuff. So the first time I was able to do that was about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
So, and 2022 was a fun time, a great time right before some interest rates started going up sharply.
Yes.
And so I was able to get in before all that and make my first purchase of a storage facility here in Middle Tennessee.
And what was that first facility like? Walk us through the process. Like you said, going 0 to 1, I'm sure there were some challenges there, but like, what was that property like? What was it like buying your first one? Maybe some of the challenges that you faced with that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I will say this. When you get in there, you're having to make the phone calls. You're having to do work to set up and say, hey, listen, I'm the new owner.
Right.
So with that one, we were doing a rebrand. So we already had our, enough on our plate with rebranding and trying to get new Google reviews. We had to make those phone calls. We had to set up the system as far as like our operating system that we use to contact customers, something that they can pay out of, something that they can send messages and we can message them out of. And so that was something that I was not ready for taking on, basically because you're acquiring those customers, not only the property.
Right.
And so you got to like pretty much start from scratch and say, hey, I'm the new owner. This is what we're doing. And then you get into it and you're like, hey, this person hasn't been responding, or, this he's not paying over here. Let's go check it out. And come to find out that, they've abandoned their storage unit and that it's full to the brim with trash and stuff that you're going to have to a dumpster and throw away.
Right. So I think it's so interesting you bring this up because I know you have other investments as well. And, in real estate, when you think about self-storage, is there more of an operational component to self-storage versus other investments where it is more of that business?
Yes. And I will say that it's still in its infancy. When we talk about self-storage, I mean, we're just now getting to like automation and some electronic features and really catching up to the rest of the world. And so operations, you need something that is going to be just like any other industry where you're able to, basically build your customers in there, put their information, have a point of contact, a way to communicate with them. Obviously, in these days, you want to have it all in one, so you want to have a way for them to pay.
Right.
You also want to be able to have, that open communication with them if need be. But also, hey, let the customer do everything themselves. If they don't want to talk to me, they don't need to talk to me. I'm okay.
All the better.
If they can figure it out themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Yeah. So, all right. So you started with the first one, right? And then where are you at today, if you don't mind sharing with our audience, just so they have a little context of your level of experience? Like, how far have you got into this? You have a lot of properties now. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Like I said, going 0 to 1, big deal, because you learn real quick. Like, oh my gosh, like you're in it.
Right.
You're having to do it. There's nobody coming to save you.
Right.
And so you're learning and you're setting the processes up in your system.
Yeah.
And so once you're able to do that and really hone in on that, that's when I jump to the second one, the third one. So currently right now, almost 4 years into it, I have 6 facilities that we have, and we have some land, and we're developing another one. And so that's a whole other conversation in itself. And so, yeah, over the past couple of years, I've really just been able to connect with other storage owners, learn from them. This is possibly maybe the last place in business and in real estate and investing that people are nice, they're kind, they're willing to share the information. Hey,
yes,
the secret. Here's what I did for my marketing. Here's what I'm doing right now for my operations or collections, cold calls, whatever it may be. And so, steel sharpens steel. I really do think that me being able to learn from them, and there's like an open community of people trying to help in storage, which makes it much easier to come into, and you're not having to pay for classes and courses and to join groups. It's more so out there, and it's very limited. There's not much of it, and so it's still a small knit community. And so just being able to get that education and help from people's experiences that have been in it for 30 years, it's very helpful.
I love it. That's great. Hey, James Shepard here again. Before we keep going with this interview, I got to talk to you about CC Storage real quick. Started this business several years back, so passionate about it. We love helping the self-storage industry. How do we do that? Well, number one, we have the best, in my opinion, the easiest to use, best self-storage management solution. So if you haven't checked it out yet, head over to ccstorage.com and check it out. But in addition to that, we offer a huge cost-saving advantage. So we have no software fees once you get started. We have some setup fees if you want us to help you with setup, but we don't have any ongoing software fees. And we're able to do that because of our unique payment processing model. We actually don't charge you payment processing fees either. We have a unique compliant program that allows your customers to pay a little bit more when they choose to pay with a card versus ACH. We keep that extra bit of revenue, and we use that revenue to offset all of the other costs. It's a very unique model, but we have over 1,500 clients now that are using this software solution, and it is working incredibly well. So if you want to check it out, head over to ccstorage.com and get a free demo today. Now, let's dive back into this interview. So let's dig into some of that, right? So for those that are out there and they're still trying to go, maybe they just got their first one, right? Or they're going 0 to 1 right now. When you think back to like the last 3.5, 4 years and what you've learned, when you think about occupancy, let's start there, right? When you get your properties, generally, do they already have a pretty high occupancy? And if not, what are you doing to increase that occupancy rate? What are your kind of tips and tricks to do that?
Yes. So I will say everybody sells you this number of occupancy, and you're like, oh, this sounds great. You can justify that in your mind, whether it's like 80% or whatever the number they give you. When it comes down to it and you're actually the owner on day one, that's not necessarily going to be the case. And that happens every time we make an acquisition and we're getting into a property. We find that, their cousin's brother was renting a unit, but he's gone now, and he has 2 units. And, then there are people that, they've never gotten in contact with, in the past couple of years to be able to, collect payments or get their stuff out. So you take on those issues. Now, I will say, you have to go through that. Have to go through the glass of knowing what you got, knowing who your customers are that are paying, because that's important.
Yes.
And knowing who's not, to be able to take care of auction, eviction process with them. And so when you look at occupancy, I can start anywhere, even if it is at 0. We did acquire one that had 10% occupancy when we took it over. It was much like an abandoned facility.
Right.
And so in order to do that and drive that occupancy and fill those units, you have to have market presence. You have to have a presence on Google, Facebook, social media. The world has to be able to Google you or look you up on a phone.
Right.
That's
the world we live in. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so I really get the presence build, those things and the presence on social media, start putting out, whether that be like sells for a certain town, like a hip Facebook group or a small town Facebook group, and throwing a deal out there and saying, hey, this first month you move in is going to be $3, and we're having a special.
Right.
Or it may be something that we're just putting posts out there trying to establish ourselves. Here's pictures of our facility, and here's what we offer. Here's what unit sizes. Here's our website.
Right.
And so that's really where you have to get started. You have to have a presence online. And then the other thing too is this is a super micro area niche thing that you're doing. It's usually within a 3-mile radius that you're working. So
right.
You are in a really tight space, and you need to get out and do that guerrilla marketing where you're passing out flyers, pulling doors, giving business cards to the business owners and everybody, and just let them know, hey, you exist. You're the person that is managing or owning or operating that. And the best part about it, when you do that, is you're planting seeds at that point.
Yeah.
And if everybody in the community knows who you are, they're going to at least be able to promote you and say, oh, hey, you were looking for a storage facility or a unit, call this guy. He came over and told me about his, place and dropped his business card off. And so getting your presence felt locally in that hyper-local area that you're in or your storage facility around, it's a key to being able to drive your occupancy up, drive really just people being able to be aware that you exist and know they can come to you.
I really like that. And kind of going back to that guerrilla marketing, I don't think that very many self-storage property owners are really doing much of that. I think the online presence, they would resonate with more, right? It's like, oh yeah, I have to have my Google Maps listing. I need to have a Facebook page, etc. But I think that idea, I'm thinking about a business that I started a long time ago. Probably one of the first businesses I had 20 years ago was a Christmas light decorating business, right? So we would go out to these really big houses and, put up the Christmas lights, take them down and store them in storage units. So I had a little bit of a crossover. And with that business, we grew really quickly and everybody would, come and say, how are you doing that? And it's like, well, I hired a bunch of teenagers and gave them door hangers, and they went out and hung a door hanger every week for 6 weeks in a row on every nice house within about 10 miles of where I was. And, we got a conversion out of that. And so I think what's interesting is as clearly social media and online marketing is getting more efficient. But I think what's happened is as everybody has gone that direction, you can also kind of stand out by going a little bit more of that legacy kind of, model of saying, hey, let me pick up the phone and call some businesses in the local area and say, hey, do you need a storage unit? Or, going out and, like you said, passing out business cards, doing door hangers, whatever it is. That's super interesting. So that's good stuff. What about filling up the one that you're building? Like, what about, talk to us about like the difference between doing the acquisition versus getting the land and building it. What has that change been like?
Money and time. That's the difference. More money, more time than you could ever think about. Like, hey, let me just go and just build a storage facility.
Right, this will be easy.
Right. Not easy. Not for the faint of heart. And listen, it's a real struggle because you're having to deal with municipalities. You're having to deal with codes. You're having to deal with counties, cities. There is all these things that you have to add up when going into developing. Are you going to be able to do that, sustain that? And at the end of the day, are you going to be able to get the project you want built like you want so you can have the right unit mix, so you can have, enough units or parking there in order to make your business profit and operate efficiently?
Yeah. And I mean, what is the rationale for it? Why would you go build versus acquire? What are your motivations for doing it?
After this first one, we'll talk about it, once this first one's complete again. But let me just say, it really is one of those things where you're having to go through not only the codes and commissioners and everybody as far as that goes. You're having to deal with the engineers. You're having to deal with the people, the metal companies and stuff. I mean, and we've known after the past couple of years, like metal prices have gone up a little bit. So, not only has the price of metal gone up, the price of all these other materials, whether that be gravel, fencing, all this stuff that goes into it, it's also going up. So that's the thing is the longer you wait, the more that price of your materials and what you have, that's going up. And so it really is to your best benefit to have everything in place as much as possible and know that you're going to be able to complete the project as fast as you can and get it done the right way. And also, look, when you do a development, you're also signing up for 0% occupancy. And the bank may be a little bit lenient with you in the first like 6 months, 12 months, maybe on like some interest only. But after that, they're going to hope and pray that you have enough people paying or that you can pay for it to stand that investment up. And so they usually say it's going to take in between like 2.5, 3 years. That's what the bank's talking. That's what they're banking on. So you can bet that it's going to take you somewhere from like 18 months to 24 months to get to a place where you're actually cash flow positive, or you're able to get to a level where you're sustaining your facility.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because one of the other questions I'd written down was I want to talk about the financing piece a little bit. So I think, a lot of people, they get into self-storage because they have some money, maybe their retirement or whatever it is. And like, hey, I'm going to go buy this one property, and they do that. And then it's like, well, now I want to go from one property to 5 or 6, right? Talk about, what do you wish that you would have known, or what tips would you share about how do you get the right access to capital? Because you need, not only do you need capital, but you need the right capital so that you don't go broke in the process. Talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Yes. And they always say, hey, if you find the deal, the money will come, and I hear that. I don't necessarily believe that 100% on these deals that I find. But yeah, it really goes down to like, are you going to be putting the money up? Is you and somebody else going to be putting the money up? Or are you going to go to somebody that's like an investment team or a syndication type model for this? If it's something that is, just say like 300 to 500 storage units and going to be over, $3 to $5 million. You really have to choose and pick wisely. And again, this is no different from any other business. Who you go into business with really matters. It's going to matter about your success rate. It's going to matter about, who's going to be able to hold people accountable, your responsibilities with that. And so with any new business partner, and even the business partners I've been doing business with in real estate for 20 years and investing with, that's something that I really like to go ahead and start from the beginning with, hey man, like what happens if this doesn't work out? We got to start with the divorce in mind in the beginning, and then we can work our way back from there. We can have that written up in contracts and agreements. It's just, I prefer that you meet and talk and really get to know the people that you're going to invest with if you are going to go with somebody beside yourself into an investment. And here's the deal is like, I've had just as many successful, storage facility investments happen, just as many as I've had, go south. And so that's just kind of business in general, what it is. And I think just being able to lay it out and structure the partnership, if you're going to go into business with somebody, really structuring that partnership, putting the language in there to protect both parties or everybody in the situation. And really, again, just kind of saying, hey man, let's get it all out on the table. Like if something bad happens, here's what we're going to do. If we can figure that part of it out, everything else is pretty simple and easy. We can start dropping off flyers down here at the local restaurants and all the stores in town.
Right. Yeah. I always tell people, it's like when they go into partnership, it's like you just said, it's sit down and go, what's the best case scenario and what's the worst case scenario? And what do we do in both of those situations? I feel like that's all the issues come when either you go broke or you start making a lot of money and then everybody gets greedy. And then they're like, wait a minute, we didn't really decide, do we pay out all the profit or are we going to use it for the next property? Or, it's like, hold on. So you got to think about best case and worst case. What about debt? What's the availability, in the market right now when you look at it for debt, or what are your thoughts on borrowing for getting the properties?
Yeah, listen, again, I'm going to tell you what my friend, he's a very, very successful businessman, told me. And he made this very, very key and aware to me. He said, listen, you need to get the best rate on the money that you can today. And when you wake up tomorrow, go to the bank across the street or go to the next person and repeat the same task. A lot of this comes down to financing and being able to structure debt, whether that be a number, a price, or terms. And so that's where you have to be able to say, hey, listen, I need price or terms in an agreement. And once we have that situated and we know that, okay, is it something that we're going to go with a bank and have to put 20% down? And, what's that interest rate? looking at locked in for 60 months? Is there an interest only period that I'm able to qualify for with them? When you dig into the financing and the debt side of it, James, I really think that it comes down to your experience, your education, and also who is financing you. Is it somebody that's an investor? Is it somebody that is a president at a bank? Is it somebody that you're taking family money from? Getting all that laid out and understood is good, and being able to write out as much as possible to say, hey, we're going to structure this debt payment back to you, or here's your returns, or here's how this is going to work if we sell this place, this is what percentage profits you're going to get. Having all that lined out and detailed is going to be key when it comes down to everybody that's involved in the investment. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be clarity to them, no matter what comes out, what day it is. If they're not able to get in touch with, the main shareholder or managing member about something, they at least know where they stand. And so I think, from an investor standpoint and from somebody who manages and invests other people's money, because that's other people's time, as I look at it. And so you have to be very responsible and careful with that, and be able to manage those expectations. No expectation is the best expectation, but when it comes to money, nobody works like that. So you gotta know what's going on.
Yeah. And I really feel like so much of it too is just a pure reputation. It's just like, man, if you're trying to build a business and you want to scale it, especially for those maybe in the audience that are, maybe they're younger or they're newer in business and they're thinking about like, man, I think I could like get some money from this investor and I think I could make a quick profit. I don't know if they're going to get the best deal. Don't do that. Like, what you're doing is you're sacrificing your reputation. And once you lose that, it doesn't matter how good of a deal you find, there's no money for you. And so when you work with investors or partners, when you bring them on, it's like, in my opinion, Brandon, I would imagine you agree. It's like, to me, the most important thing is I want them to get an incredible return on investment, and I want the deal to go great, especially early on. For those that are younger, you don't have that leverage. Your goal when you go to get an investor is like, I want that investor to tell everybody they talk to that, man, do deal with James, and he will make sure that he does right by you. And then that word spreads. People that have money, they talk, and that spreads around,
Yeah, and to your point too, James. I mean, listen, if we're at a party this Saturday and we're sitting there sharing stories and sandwiches, and we're talking about returns on investment. Well, if you have a great return on your investment and you're wanting to tell me about it, well, I'm going to listen. If you're giving me a good deal or some advice on, and that is how it works. Word travels fast, especially, when things don't go right. And so you want to be able to protect your reputation. And listen, you've probably done it. You've heard a lot of stories. I've done it. I went and took the money, hey, give me some money. I want to go start this business. And then you're having to fight your way out of it in order to either obtain that asset or that business, or you're having to sell it and start all over. And that's the point of, like, you really got to know like who you're getting into business with, and just don't take the first or fastest money that comes along.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, it's never too late or too bad to make a plan. I think a lot of people, things start to slide a little bit, and then they just kind of want to crawl up into a ball. They don't want to tell anybody what's going on. It's like, that's when communication is most important. That's when you got to call that investor. You got to call the bank and say, hey, I screwed up, or hey, things went south. Let's figure this out. Let's talk about it. I'm going to do the best I can possibly do here for you. Like, that's when your reputation is really on the line. And when people see that even in that moment, you're still going to put yourself out there. So we're having this conversation. It's so interesting, right? Because it's like, everybody always talks about how to get money. And they're always like you said, find the deal and the money will come. It's like, really, it's like, build the reputation and the money will come. That's the real way to get capital.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a much better way to put it, James. That is a great way to put it.
Right. So, well, Brandon, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you jumping in and taking this time. Before I let you go, give us one last tip. So again, if you could go back to yourself 3.5 years ago, you're just getting into self-storage. What is like one thing or a couple things that you're like, man, if only I would have known back then? What would that be?
Yeah, I would say this. I would say, get Da Vinci locks or something that you're able to control. That way your tenants
cannot dictate when you come or when you call your handyman to come cut it off. We get a lot of those calls with our company, Storage Unit Repair. And so if you're able to control your units and have somebody be able to do double lockouts and all that stuff, but that was the biggest thing in my year one, James. It probably cost me 60 to 80 hours just going and checking on locks and changing things. And that's not the money. I'm sure I spent thousands of dollars just having locks cut from a locksmith and doing all that. So having your locks and your locking mechanisms throughout your facility, whether that be the units, doors, the gate to the entrance of your facility or the exit, that would be the thing that I would take care of first and foremost, because that is going to save you time and money while you, and put where you're going to put your time where you're able to, put your time at when it comes to marketing operations, instead of having to go and change and, Mr. Smith's lock or, Miss Sue's, like she can't get into the entrance of the facility with her code. So that will save you time. And it all really comes down to automation, James. And so that's what I would say. Automate as much as you can of your processes.
Love it. Good stuff. Hey, Brandon, thank you so much for jumping on today. Really appreciate it. And I wish you great success out there, man. Thanks so much for taking time to listen to this episode of the Self Storage Insight Podcast, brought to you by ccstorage.com.